feel like microwaved death, I said from the couch. My younger brother, who was standing next to me with a bowl of cereal in his hand, laughed.
Poor little guy doesn't have insurance,
Tony said in a baby talk voice.
Maybe you should get a real job like me. Then you wouldn't have to worry about going to the doctor. Maybe I should move to a country that has universal health care. Like any other developed country in the world, I groaned. Leave you to pay this place's expensive-ass rent all by yourself. God socialist,
Tony said, hitting my feet so I would move my legs to let him sit down. I had some movie on the television I hadn't really been paying attention to. I had picked it at random when I came out to the couch from my bedroom in the hopes that I could actually get some sleep on the couch. It hadn't worked. Tony ate his breakfast while watching the movie. I shut my burning eyes and tried to sleep. Pretty soon, I heard Tony slurping his milk.
Why don't you see one of those telemedicine things? He asked. I hear it's pretty cheap. Maybe they can prescribe you something.
I opened my eyes, reminded of something I'd seen on my latest dark web adventure. I worked from home as a copywriter, but my clients had been dropping me since the latest version of ChatGPT had come out. Now, I had too much time on my hands, and I used much of it to surf the dark web, seeing all the weird that was on there. It was better than facing up to the fact that I was going to have to get a real job, like the soul-sucking one my brother had at a big financial advisor firm. But Tony's remark about telemedicine brought to mind a site I stumbled across a month earlier. I remembered it looking pretty legit, and reminded myself to check it out if I didn't start to feel better. A couple of hours after Tony left for work, I decided I had enough. I grabbed my laptop and started my research. First off, I went to a couple of telehealth sites on the regular web, seeing the prices and what they offered. Although most of them were under $100, I still wanted to see what the one on the dark web offered. I was broke as a joke, so anything that could help me save a few bucks would be worth it in my book. I opened up my Tor browser and got to looking. At first, I couldn't remember the name of the site, but after doing a little digging, I found it. It was called Whole Body Wellness. The homepage looked very similar to the other telehealth website I just visited on the regular web, but the main difference was the pricing. At Whole Body Wellness, the first visit was only $10. I thought that was strange, so I looked for the fine print, and then I saw it. Apparently, the person I would talk to wasn't actually a doctor, at least not in America. The text said that the doctors had all been trained in India and were extending their services to the rest of the world. But since there are strict standards in the US, they couldn't do so on the regular web. They had to do it on the dark web. It made sense to me, and I figured that humans are humans everywhere. If a doctor from India could help someone in that country, they could help me too. I didn't think I was dealing with some sort of rare disease. I was just hoping to get some drugs that would help me feel better while I recovered. But I didn't know how the prescription thing would work. Luckily, I found a section that said the site was partnered with a dark web medicine site that could get common drugs shipped in less than 24 hours. By this point, I was starting to get skeptical. It seemed like too much risk, and I would technically be breaking the law. It definitely wasn't legal to order prescription drugs off the dark web. So just as I was resigning myself to spending more money than I wanted on a legit telehealth site, a chat box popped up on Whole Body Wellness. "Hello, are you feeling sick?" the text bubble read. I stared at it for a moment, considering what to do. Then another message came through. "We will help you right now for half price. Only $5. Money back guaranteed." Laughing, I decided that if nothing else, this would be an entertaining venture. It would help take my mind off how bad I felt. Besides, I knew I had some money sitting in a Bitcoin wallet, like $15 last I checked. "Okay," I wrote. "Great, tell me your symptoms." I wrote a message detailing how I felt. Hot and cold flashes, upset stomach, sore muscles, sniffles, sore throat. There was no response for a minute, but then a message popped up. "Doctor will see you now," it said. The page changed, and a window came up, filling my entire computer screen. In the top right corner, my face came up. I realized it was a video call, and they'd somehow gained access to my camera without my permission. I reached out and put a thumb over the camera so the guy couldn't see my face.
What is this?
I said, moving my finger around on the navigation pad so I could exit the call. But it didn't work. I couldn't exit. The man that filled the screen smiled at me. He was white, which I thought strange because the company was apparently from India. He wore a white lab coat like a doctor would, and he was well-groomed and friendly looking. He almost looked like he was straight from central casting for a handsome doctor in a third-rate Netflix drama.
It's okay, Sal.
The guy said.
You don't have to use the camera. I'll get rid of it.
The little window in the corner that showed my camera feed disappeared. Before I could think about how he learned my name, he started talking again.
I'll help you get over this sickness,
he said as I took my thumb away from the camera. Something strange was happening to the screen. Parts of it were flickering in and out, like there was static interference in the feed or something.
All you have to do is listen to me very carefully.
I stared into the screen, looking at the guy's eyes. His voice seemed to be growing louder. There was something else there, underneath, almost like a barely audible thrum of distant machinery, like the hum of engines on a giant cruise ship.
Do you want to be healthy again?
He asked.
Yeah,
I said, feeling better already.
Okay, good. I can help you with that. Listen carefully. Here's what you do.
I woke up on the couch when Tony got home.
Jesus, you haven't even moved?
He asked, looking haggard from his day at work.
You better have rent next month.
He locked the apartment door and moved off.
I am feeling better,
I called after him.
Thanks for asking, Tony.
It was meant to be a barb, but it was also true. I was feeling better. Great, actually.
Yeah, sure,
he yelled from his room.
You still look like
I ignored this and stood up from the couch. My laptop was on the coffee table, still open but asleep. I woke it up and found that my Tor browser was closed. Had I ever opened it? I thought I had, but it all seemed like a dream now. It didn't matter. I was feeling much better. I had more energy than I knew what to do with, and for the first time in a long time, when I thought about my job prospects, I didn't fall into a deep depression. Instead, I showered, brushed my teeth, and then fixed myself something to eat. It was going on 8 o'clock by the time I sat down in my room and started the novel I'd been thinking of writing for years. The words seemed to flow, as if they had been building up behind a wall in my mind, waiting for release. My fingers flew across the keyboard, and I knew without a doubt that what I was writing was pure gold. No mistakes, no inconsistencies. It was gold. I wrote until the early morning hours. When I finally started feeling worn out from the creative work, I got up to use the bathroom before heading to bed. When I stepped into the dark bathroom, I caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar man in the mirror.
Jesus,
I said, flipping on the lights. But there was no man, only me, looking surprisingly good for having been sick for several days. Still, my heart was thumping as I took a piss and brushed my teeth before bed. It struck me that the man I thought I'd seen in the mirror wasn't wholly unfamiliar. He looked like the dark web doctor from my dream. It was a dream, wasn't it? Dismissing it as a symptom of my earlier sickness, I left the bathroom and got into bed. As I snuggled down under the covers, I smiled at what I accomplished. The novel was going to be good, really good. I fell asleep soon after. But I didn't sleep for long. I didn't need to. Before Tony was up, I'd already gotten a few thousand words down. I stayed in my room writing until long after Tony left for work, and I only stopped to grab some food. I wrote with a feverish intensity, almost like I was on some kind of drug. The days passed like this. Paying rent took most of the rest of my money, but I wasn't worried about it. I felt like Bradley Cooper in that movie Limitless, only I didn't have to take any pills. I'd tapped into something that had been there all along, hiding inside me. Or so I thought. Tony grew worried about me. Every time he saw me, he said I looked terrible. But what I saw in the mirror was a man who looked better than ever. I thought he was just jealous that I'd found my purpose, and he still had to go into his shitty office job 5 days a week. Shortly after I'd written the first 5 chapters, I sent them to a few agents with a query letter. Weeks later, I started getting letters back, and it was just as I thought. These people were clamoring to represent me, provided, of course, the entire book was as good as the first chapters. I knew it was gold, or it would be gold when I finished it. When I told Tony that I was going to get a massive book deal, he just looked at me and asked if I was doing drugs. I laughed in his face and went back into my room. I only had a few chapters left to write. Then it would be on to the next novel, the sequel. It would be better than the first. But then something happened. My fingers were flying along, writing the first lines of the last chapter of the book, the most important chapter, and it was suddenly like I lost the ability to type. Squiggly red lines appeared under the words as my fingers lost their dexterity. The words that had come up so easily so far were now jumbled up inside my head. I couldn't find the right ones. Then I noticed my hands. They were thin and bony, looking like the hands of someone 3 times my age. My stomach suddenly felt empty and queasy. My eyelids felt scratchy, and a heavy fog rolled into my mind. I lurched up from my desk and hurried to the bathroom, not bothering to turn on the light as I fell to my knees in front of the toilet. I threw up what little there was in my stomach, coffee and stomach acid. When I was done retching, I stood up, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. As I stepped over to the sink to rinse my mouth out, I cried out at the figure who greeted me. The light spilling in from my bedroom allowed me to see enough of the stranger for fear to course through my veins. He had sunken eyes surrounded by dark bags. He was hunched and skinny, his clothes shabby and unwashed. His hair was thin and disheveled, and his cheeks were so sunken there were deep shadows under his cheekbones. I stepped to the wall and flipped the light switch, splashing the stranger in light.
What the f***?
I cried, looking at myself in the mirror.
What the?
A man appeared in the mirror, to the right and slightly behind me. He was a white guy, friendly looking and handsome. He wore a white lab coat and had that doctor look about him. It was the dark web doctor from my dream. He put a hand on my shoulder in the mirror, but I felt nothing. When I turned and looked over my shoulder, there was no one there. I was alone in the bathroom. But when I looked back in the mirror, the man's perfect teeth gleamed at me.
How are you feeling, Sal?
He asked.
I'm sick again, aren't I? This is a fever dream.
The doctor shook his head. I'm afraid not, he said.
It's very real, which is good for you, actually. Very good.
Now that I was looking into the man's eyes, I couldn't look away. I felt a little better now that the doctor was in the house.
I don't feel all that great,
I told him.
I need to finish the book, but the words... I know, Sal,
he said.
I know. And I can help you with that. I can make you feel better. I can even make you look better. For real this time. I can help you finish the book. How would you like that?
I nodded.
I need to finish it. Okay,
he said. Then here's what you need to do. Listen very carefully, Sal. This is important. And he told me what he wanted. He explained it to me as though I were a child. When he was done, I hesitated. The doctor shrugged.
It's up to you, Sal. It's your choice. It has to be your choice. You know what will happen if you don't do it, right?
I nodded. Tears spilled from my eyes as I told him I'd do it. I'd take the deal. 10 minutes later, I walked out of Tony's room, hands soaked in my brother's blood. He'd been sleeping when I slipped into his room, but he'd awoken when I plunged the knife into his chest. The look on his face, the betrayal. As I washed my hands in the sink, I felt good again. I felt the energy come back into me. And I felt the words waiting in my mind again, waiting to come out. I was so excited to finish the book, I didn't do a very good job of washing my hands. And as I sat down at my computer and started tapping away at the keyboard, I left bits of my brother's blood on the keys. When I got to the end of the book, I still felt like I was on a roll. So I opened a new document and immediately got started on the next novel. Or I tried to. The words wouldn't come again, and I heard the doctor's voice in my ear. "Oh, Sal," he said, "the deal was only for one book. You'll have to give me someone else for the next one." I stared down at my blood-stained keyboard for a moment. Then I asked, "Who?" Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and smash that like button to get notified every time I upload a new video.